So, we do need to do some digging with this one, but I think it's fascinating, so like a magician, I shall now fascinate you. But the latest WWE financials are out, and given where the company were anyway and what's going on with the world, we may be about to go through quite the change with how the organization operates. I could be absolutely wrong about that, of course, but there's no smoke without fire, and I can smell the flames. In short, Vincent Kennedy McMahon has now twice hinted that house shows may not be long for this world as we know them, or that house shows may be about to go away forever. And I think that's huge. Why? Here's why. Now, I know not everyone knows the slang term, so a house show is just one of the events you go to when the TV cameras are off. It's what makes the WWE schedule so crazy and what makes AEW's schedule so much better. At some point, you'd have to imagine that All Elite Wrestling will expand, but if you're working for the former, you don't just do Raw, you don't just do SmackDown, you don't just do pay-per-views, you do around about 4 other shows flying all over the country before having a day off, and then you go and do it all again. For years, it would be a huge money earner for World Wrestling Entertainment and used as a place to test storylines and matches out before bringing them to the big stage. He also attracted somewhat of a different crowd in the sense that Roman Reigns wouldn't be booed, just in case you wonder why you tune into TV, and he remains a good guy just because in WWE eyes, he still is a good guy, because on a house show, he gets cheered. See? Wrestling maths. If we do go back to one of the WWE's conference calls in 2019 though, that McMahon even used the word antiquated when discussing house shows and said they would be reimagined. Through cost-cutting measures, they also scaled back drastically, and if you actually look at the schedule, before the world stopped, it was kinda crazy. The powerhouse that never stopped for anything or anyone had reduced their talents' work dates. Almost unheard of. This was done, as said, because they weren't making the money they used to, and even Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer has discussed how house shows may actually be losing cash these days. So that begs the question why you'd even do them if that was the case. And so now they've stopped them altogether, you've got to consider if they're ever going to come back, or at least come back how we used to know them, because that wouldn't make any sense. If something has started to fail, you don't just run it into the ground. Who would do that? Fast forward to 2020, and Vince added to this by saying he doesn't know if WWE will be in the live event business as they were before, and that going forward, they're going to be more content orientated. He made it clear this was an opportunity rather than a problem, and also pitched the idea that maybe arenas will charge less for rent due to expected lower turnouts, which in turn would mean lower ticket prices. For a unit that at one point would have their wrestlers on the road for around about 3 months straight, well, this is like entering a whole new universe. I mean, you go listen to any old school wrestler, they say, I didn't come home for 122 days. Sometimes it was true. The key words in that last paragraph too are as they were before. We've no idea how far back McMahon is referencing, but if he thinks their house show schedule is out of date and out of touch, and over the last 6 months or so, it's not been doing what it's designed to do, which is make money, then why would you carry on? And why wouldn't you find a silver lining throughout this global crisis, which would be to scrap your old business model and come up with a new one? And it opens up the door for other chats, because how would this affect a wrestler's payoff? And on a wider level, where does WWE create new revenue streams in order to balance the books? But as they do have this TV deal as a buffer, now is the time to take somewhat of a risk and ask yourself if you would still go right now, because you're very much the people WWE wants to turn up at these things. And when you're there, they'd also like it if you bought a bunch of merchandise. But if I said I had 2 tickets to sell for the Barclays Center for 3 hours of non-TV WWE wrestling, are you going to go? I'm not sure everybody watching would say yes. You also have to look at what the situation is when we are allowed back out of our houses, please be soon, and life slowly returns to normal. The economy is going to struggle no matter where you are, and trying to justify going to a house show may not be viable anymore because you've got months of income to sort out. And let's not pretend they're not fun, of course they are, and every time I've gone to one, I have flippin' loved it, and maybe even more so than a TV taping, because at a house show, wrestlers know they can run amok. The remit has always been if it wasn't caught on camera, it didn't happen, so you never know what you're gonna get. I mean, I remember years ago attending one over here in the UK, up in Manchester, England, and Triple H spent half of his match just joke arguing with this fan in the front row who would not let up on it. I mean, the game treated it with just the right amount of gusto so that it became part of the act, and you wouldn't have got that anywhere else. There's no room for that when you have a Raw, even at 3 hours, that needs to be very specifically structured down to the last minute. I mean, I think they say something crazy like it costs $40,000 every minute or some nuts figure. You can't go and go hee with a fan. So what do we do? Well, it seems very likely sooner rather than later, pay-per-views are going to leave the WWE network and go back to being literal pay-per-views, or at least WrestleMania will be. That's a new source of money. And McMahon seems very high on these mini-movies that have become the norm as of late, so maybe there's something in that. I'm not saying you're going to be charged for a boneyard match, but if content is the new strategy, then you've got to figure the way we consume wrestling may change too. Hell, maybe it all becomes one massive 3D experience and virtual reality thing where you pay a few bucks to go sit in a virtual arena and actually watch a match between Ricochet and Kevin Owens. Ricochet will lose, of course, but that is just the way of the world. Some things ain't gonna change. For someone like me, though, who has been watching this madness for almost 30 years, the thought of house shows vanishing is actually pretty crazy. I mean, even the thought of only having 2 a week was nuts to me, especially because the WWE schedule has been a talking point for years. I mean, I've even mentioned it multiple times, and that's because it's not like anything else. I mean, there's only few industries where you're asked to work as many dates as you do when you're a WWE wrestler. And there are other upsides too, because it should mean that the roster gets more time off, which I think we can all agree is needed. But then that ties into finances as well. Once you're used to X amount of dollars a year, learning you're now only going to make half of that isn't going to please anyone. It's like when the network was born and one CM Punk went around saying, can you let me know what this means for pay-per-view payoffs? I'm not even sure if they ever got an answer or if they ever got that sorted, but maybe that's where the balance arrives. We do indeed go back to paying $30+ a month for a main event, but some of that also goes to the talent too. I mean, it seems almost too easy. I'm just throwing out ideas, but ultimately I have no clue. And that's another question that you as a World Wrestling Entertainment fan have to ask yourself. Let's say in a fake world, house shows are killed, meaning now that's one less thing for you to spend money on. Would you be happy for the WWE network to basically become a time box, and if you want to watch anything new, e.g. pay-per-views, you then have to shell out and put your hand back in your pocket? Because the problem there, of course, is that you may not necessarily ever want to go to live events. You may not be that person, but now you're used to it. You're used to this magic thing under your television just giving you pay-per-views for $10 a month. If that gets taken away, where does it leave you? And in the bigger picture, where does that leave the wrestling business? I mean, does everybody follow suit with WWE? Are we saying that streaming services are dead? Are we saying that pay-per-view is coming back? Are we saying that television is king, given that that is where the majority of our revenues are coming from? And I'm not sitting here saying that I have the answers, but I am saying I am massively intrigued by all of this, and I don't know what direction we are going to go in. Let's hope that it's all okay. That's the main thing. I hope that it's all okay, and I hope the wrestlers are paid what they deserve, and they are paid what they worth. Especially what happened the other day when loads of people got released. Let's just enter a stage again where we don't have to worry about that. I know some people are always going to lose their jobs, but not like they did a week or so ago. Rubbish. If we do get through this, however, and WWE goes back to running house shows like we know, I will be shocked. Far more shocked than if they were killed off altogether. But we are just living in fascinating times, people, and it's going to get even weirder before it calms down. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you think about house shows. 1, do you want them? 2, would you miss them? And 3, let's throw some positivity in there. What is your favorite house show moment? Then like the video, share the video, subscribe to What Culture Wrestling, then head over to whatculture.com, read yourself some articles, go to Twitter, everyone loves their crazy social media, follow What Culture at What Culture WWE, and watch more videos here on What Culture Wrestling. My name is Simon from What Culture. Thank you very much for watching, and you wouldn't think I was such a geek, that I was such a nerd, that I would be intrigued about WWE house shows, but I am, because they're like the distant brother, the distant sister, the distant sibling you never see. You know they're going on, but right now you're not picking up the phone and you're not having a chat. And Vince McMahon has to know this. We have now had 2 financial calls, 2 conference calls where he has specifically referenced house shows, and like I said, he called it antiquated, he called it out of date, and he also said he had the answer. Well, right now we haven't seen that answer, but we are living in mad times, as I keep saying. Maybe the solution is just round the corner, and deep down, I have absolutely no idea what it's going to be. If they do go, and I never get to talk about it again, rest in peace, house shows. I will always love you. Like Celine Dion. Nope, Whitney Houston. Technically, Dolly Parton.